Hello and welcome in to another episode of the Fantasy Football Forecast. I'm your host, Trevor Scott, joined by my co-host, Matt Giraldi.
What's going on, guys?
And today we are coming at you with another mock draft. We'll be doing a 12-team SuperFlex mock, 3 wide receiver. And without further ado, let's get into it. I'll be drafting from the 3 spot, give you guys an idea, a little bit of not the turn pick, but an earlier pick within the draft. And Matt's going to go right in the middle at 7. So let's start this off. Oops, let me mute this first and then let's start so you don't hear the pings. We got Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes off the board 1-2 early. And for me, with this, I am going to try to go with Christian McCaffrey here. I think that, going quarterback is the safe route, and going Jalen Hurts, who I have as my number 2 quarterback, is probably the pick here. But I'm going to, for the sake of this, see how it works out when I go McCaffrey up top. Kind of try and do a hero RB build here with McCaffrey as the pick.
Awesome. So 4 quarterbacks go off the board. The way I see the top 4 quarterbacks is they are in a tier of their own, but I don't have CJ Stroud in that tier. And I do have Lamar Jackson as my number 3 quarterback. So for me, this pick is pretty obvious here.
As you can see, second half of a 12-team Superflex in the first round, a lot of receivers going off there.
A lot of receivers going off there. And now kind of got an interesting decision to make. I'm between Bijan Robinson and Garrett Wilson. If this was a 2 wide receiver league, I think the pick would be very easily Bijan. But when I was talking about tiers with Lamar, is kind of the same way I view Garrett Wilson as being kind of that last player in the tier of wide receiver that I'm comfortable being my number 1. So I'm going to go ahead and take Garrett Wilson here.
And, oh, wow, look at that. That's music to my ears because I'm going to be looking at a quarterback. And so, 4 positions or 4 picks go without a quarterback being taken, which is great for me. I'm going to take Kyler Murray. I think he has the highest upside of all of them left. And I did a breakdown video of Kyler, Dak, and Burrow, who are the 3 picked here in a row. I have it ranked Dak, Kyler, and Burrow, so I feel like I got a good value there. Jordan Love goes in the turn. We get to see the first tight end go there. We got Brock Purdy kind of alone up top at quarterback. I'm going to try and mine my second quarterback a little later in the draft to show you guys what it looks like if you do decide to wait here, especially with how much talent we have up top. Unfortunately, I'm in a kind of a bad spot for picking a receiver here. This is kind of the disadvantage of going running back with your first pick. But I'm going to go with the tight end here. I feel like there's a lot of picks between now and my next pick, and I really think that Kelsey can give you an advantage at the position, just like he has over the last, a handful of years.
Cool. So for me, top player on my board right here is Chris Olave. I view him just kind of in that tier right after, the Garrett Wilsons of the world. I have him ahead of Puka Nacua. I've got Marvin Harrison just slightly ahead of Olave at this point, but for me, love Chris Olave. He's been kind of one of my guys since entering the league, or I guess going back to Ohio State. So really happy with the way that this is starting off for me at this point. And swinging back around. If you've
been watching our mocks, you know that Matt loves him some Chris Olave. So
I know. I need to get myself a Chris Olave jersey. All right, so looking at the board, don't have a running back yet. Looking at Devon Achane, Isaiah Pacheco. Tight end is an interesting one because, again, talking about tiers, I have that first 4 tight ends as kind of their tier of their own. And I'm going to go ahead and go in that direction with Mark Andrews just because he is my tight end 3 this year. Again, like you said, with Travis Kelce having that positional advantage, albeit maybe not quite the same ceiling, I still believe that Andrews puts me in a really good spot. And he's someone I know that, would definitely not make it back to my next pick.
Yeah, and I think that's a good move there. And also for me, right, I did mention there's a lot of picks between my 3rd and 4th round pick, and both of the tight ends that I would have wanted went. So I'm very happy that I decided to get in on Kelsey there. I don't have to worry about tight end the rest of the draft here. And so, again, I'm in a weird spot with wide receiver. There's just not a lot of wide receivers here that I think are worth the pick over some of the QBs, or even more importantly, the running backs here. So for me, I'm going to go running back again here, and I'm feeling very uncomfortable about my wide receiver core. So let's see what I'm able to put together here. But I do have Isaiah Pacheco ranked 1 spot ahead of Devon Achane. I do understand if you want to go Achane here for upside, right? I think there's very few players with as much per touch upside as Devon Achane has. So if he does get a little bit of increased volume, he could be in the top 5 running backs. I'm going to take a little bit more of the safety with Pacheco. I do expect him to be a 3 down workhorse. He's going to get all the volume in one of the best passing or in one of the best offenses in general in the league. So I'm going to go with Pacheco.
It's funny, I've noticed in the 12 team drafts we do, you end up, for whatever reason, kind of just waiting on wide receiver a little bit more than you do in 10 team. And I know it's kind of just playing the board, but kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is because I in this one went McCaffrey, but in the 12 teams I'm much more inclined to draft a quarterback early. And unless you have a later pick, right? And like look at your pick was kind of where that top tier of receivers go. So if you draft in the top 6, you're going to be hard pressed to get one of those guys. And so that's kind of why I feel like it always plays out like this. Unfortunately, I'm still kind of in a bad spot with receiver wise here, but I am going to take a receiver, and I'm going to highlight somebody who's been kind of getting pushed up draft boards very consistently over the offseason. He's looked great. He's finally coming into the year healthy for the first time in 3 years, and that's Cooper Kupp.
All right, so don't have a running back yet. Looking over at those guys, there's James Cook, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara. Wide receiver, Diggs, Neighbors, DK. Taking a peek at the quarterbacks. No one I love in that position. So someone who I've been pushing up the board quite a bit is Kenneth Walker. So typically I've been going James Cook here. I do like Cook quite a bit. There have been kind of some negative reports a little bit out of camp, but I don't know, with Walker, he's just so explosive, and the coaching staff is talking him up even more this year with the new regime. So, if he does hit, and I waited 5 rounds to take a running back, I could be in a very good position here. And look at that, James Cook made it back to me, so can stop talking about him and just take him here.
Yeah, and that's very lucky too. The James Cook pick. I mean, Team 8 doesn't have a running back. Team 10 doesn't have a running back. Team 11 doesn't have a running back, and he still made it back to you. I'm not sure that I'd expect that in your real drafts, but that is very fortunate for the mock draft purposes here. All right, and so looking at the wide receivers available, right? I have my 2 running backs, so I don't think I'm going to be going in that direction. This tier of running backs is very good if you're getting in on your second running back, so maybe that's a lesson learned in the 4th round. Maybe I could have gone with another receiver over Pacheco and taken advantage of this running back depth area here, but I'm not in that position. I'm not crazy about any of these receivers. I do like George Pickens quite a bit, but until the Ayuk situation is settled, it's a little bit hairy at this point to pick Pickens. I do expect Ayuk to stay with the 49ers at this point, but just highlighting a risk that if he does get traded, that pick immediately is going to lose value. So looking at the quarterbacks, I think we're at a point in the 6th round here of 12 teams especially where you kind of need to get your second one. And for me, right, this is thinning out very quickly, so I'm going to go ahead and take Aaron Rodgers, who I have ranked the highest of this group. No other quarterbacks went. Aaron Jones, Dave Montgomery, Pickens, and Higgins unfortunately went. So looking at down the board again here a little bit, I think I'm going to be going definitely in the wide receiver direction, but I'm going to go down the board a little bit, and I'm going to highlight somebody that the ranking hasn't been adjusted on Sleeper yet. So if you're drafting on Sleeper until this ranking gets edited, I definitely think you should be taking advantage of this value. But Rashee Rice, is getting pushed up into a lot of people's top 20 receivers just because it doesn't look like he's going to get suspended this year. That suspension likely will be coming next year, if at all. So I'm going to go get it on Rashee Rice here.
Good pick. So similar to what Trevor said about, wanting to get that second quarterback locked in this round or even the round before. The reason that I'm not going to lock him in is looking at the teams that are going to be drafting between me right now. Each of those teams has 2 quarterbacks already. So I know we've talked about this before, but when you're in your draft, there's a good chance that none or maybe 1 or 2 of those guys will take a 3rd quarterback. And if there's enough quarterbacks left on the board that you're comfortable with, I would probably just wait. Now, looking at running back, there's a couple guys I like, James Conner specifically, wide receiver. This tier is a little bit boring for me, so I'm going to go and take James Conner. We've talked about him quite a bit. When he's on the field, he's very productive. We don't expect him to necessarily play a full healthy 17 games, but he's someone that, I feel like I can start with confidence. And now I think, and look at that, no quarterbacks go. So now I kind of have my pick of the litter here. Deshaun Watson, heard a story today out of camp. We're recording this on Wednesday that had some arm soreness. So I don't know if want to just trust him completely. Will Levis is kind of boom bust. But Geno Smith is, I think, someone that, if you do want to wait for quarterback, he's a good pick here. We saw him a couple years ago have a standout year. This year they've got the new OC coming in. They've got three really good receivers, so definitely a good value to have here later in the later rounds.
And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this pick, Calvin Ridley. If you guys have been watching all of our mocks, we always get Calvin Ridley on sleeper because he is going as wide receiver 37, and I have him ranked at 25 or 26. So I definitely feel very good about that pick, especially as my third starter at receiver there. And I feel like for waiting on receiver all the way until the fifth round of a three wide receiver league, I feel like I did very good with Cooper Kupp, Rashee Rice, and Calvin Ridley. I feel like I have a lot of mixture of upside, but also a decent target floor there with all those guys. And so I know I still need my flex spot, right? I only have two running backs, so I do need to attack that position pretty aggressively. But I do want to highlight that this is about the point in the draft where if you did wait on quarterback and you have like Aaron Rodgers or like you just picked Geno Smith, this is where you want to start thinking about drafting your third quarterback. And again, I highlighted that I need a starter, so I'm probably going to go in a different direction. But with Deshaun Watson and Will Levis really feeling like those guys are better options than the rest of the guys available, that is definitely something that you guys want to be heavily considering, even though your starters aren't necessarily filled all the way out. I do really like Deontay Johnson, and I feel like he's got a target floor similar to what I just described with my top three wide receivers. So I'm going to go here. If I had already had four wide receivers, I'd be picking Ladd McConkey. I think he has the highest upside and could potentially be the number one receiver for Justin Herbert. So I think that comes with a lot of upside. But I'm going to take the more known quantity here for my fourth receiver.
Oh, and there goes Lad. I was just about to say that easy pick for me there. Check out tomorrow. We've got a sleepers episode coming out, and Lad will be part of that show. But gonna go to a guy who I have been pushing up quite a bit the last few days. Again, a sleeper for this year, Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know, for whatever reason, just haven't really been paying a whole lot of attention to him this offseason, which is very out of character for me in terms of just being all over the rookies. But the reports out of camp are just ridiculous. No one can keep up with them. He's on the field for two wide receiver sets, so on and so forth. So there's a non-zero chance that he's the number one receiver in Jacksonville. And whether or not you believe in Trevor Lawrence, like, he does air it out quite a bit. So excited about that upside while already having, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who hopefully should be, pretty high floor guys. Looking back at the receiver Christian Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, Jameson Williams, no one here I totally love. Running back, kind of the same situation. So I will go ahead and lock in my third quarterback, like Trevor mentioned. Bryce Young, young player. They improved all around him. Hopefully they can turn things around and he's not a total bust, but worth taking a shot on, and definitely need that third quarterback.
Yeah, I think that was a good decision. I would have taken Deshaun Watson. That's who I was hoping made it back to me. And looking at this now, Will Levis has some upside just in general, but then there's Derek Carr, who there's no surprise that I like. Bo Nix just got named the starter, so I think there's the option here, and Gardner Minshew got named the starter. So I'm going to wait one more round on quarterback, take one in the 11th here, and I'm going to get in on somebody that we're going to talk about again in that video you talked about tomorrow, in Brian Robinson. I think he's been getting rave reviews in camp, and he is going to be the early down runner. I don't think Eckler is going to take a ton of that early down work or that goal line work from him. So I think he could have some value here as an early down running back. Of course, Levis went. Was that team's? Oh, that was only his second quarterback. So if I had looked at that, I might have done that. I might have taken him. But I'm just going to go top quarterback here and take Derek Carr. I was comfortable with either of them.
So I am pretty thin at wide receiver. I only have three guys right now. This is a three wide receiver league, so I need to start getting some more guys on my team. Interesting. I've never, man, this is tough. I don't really like a lot of these guys. It thins out so much in three wide receiver or in 12 team. My gosh. I'm going to just take Cortland Sutton and just hope he's the number one, and Bo Nix is halfway decent. I'm not a Bo Nix fan, but just banking on the talent here.
Can't deny he's looked good.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
There's a lot of hype.
Yeah, Next guy
It
here.
feels to me a little bit like Kenny Pickett last year. Remember how good Kenny Pickett was in the preseason? Everybody's like, "Oh, Pickett's going to have an
Yeah,
amazing year," and then he was
yeah,
terrible. Like I feel
yeah,
like there's going to be a little bit of that to Bo Nix.
yeah.
So
No, I feel that too. And here, Jacoby Myers, just again adding to the receiver depth on my team. He's kind of been one of the more underrated, fantasy players for a while now, and maybe not the flashiest pick, but solid player.
yeah, and I love that pick. That's who I had my eye on at receiver. And since you took him, I'm going to pivot back to running back, back to somebody I like a lot, Rico Dowdle. I think that he's much more explosive than Zeke, and I think as long as he's healthy, he should be handling a healthy portion of this backfield. So that's who I'm going to go with here. Overall, again, back to receiver. I did expect that Joshua Palmer would make it back to me. Again, get in on some of this Chargers passing offense that is being projected to be, very, very low production. But with Herbert, you just never know. They could be very good with a better offensive line in a run game. The efficiency could be there. He could be a solid bye week fill in, and he could also be somewhere where you pick your shots on, if you think they're going to be losing a game or if you think they're playing against a bad defense. He's somebody that can fill in your flex spot.
Yeah, and I'm going to go right into the Chargers well here and take J.K. Dobbins. I think he's the more talented running back or the most talented running back on their team. Obviously, has battled injuries, but kind of a lotto ticket pick here because if it hits, it could hit in a pretty decent way. Next pick, another guy who I like, and I've been pushing up my boards, Jalen Polk, wide receiver for New England Patriots. I think there's a very good chance he ends up as the team's number one. Um, Offense shouldn't be great, but everyone is better than Mac Jones. So I think this late in drafts, he's someone I recommend taking.
Right, and then looking at my team here now. So if we kind of cruise over to my roster, it's not letting me open it. There we go. Right, I got the two starters at running back, and then I have two bench running backs. So I'm going to go in on running back again here, and I think Jaleel McLaughlin is an interesting player because I do expect him in the Peyton offense to be that pass catching running back. So if he gets any sort of rushing down opportunities, where he's getting 8 carries and 4 receptions, that's something that keeps him on the field a lot and could possibly, either work himself into more of an opportunity or, if Javonte gets hurt, he's somebody that I definitely feel like has the ability to be a starting player. So that's the way I'm going to go. And I feel pretty good about where my receivers are at now. I have 4 in my starting lineup and I have Joshua Palmer, but I do think getting an additional bench wide receiver, having 2 guys on my bench is the way that I want to go with this pick here. And wide receiver is really rough at this point in the draft, right? I mean, these guys are all complete dart throws. So I don't blame you if you go back to running back and maybe take a handcuff. I did, I did get Christian McCaffrey, so I could take Jordan Mason here. Isaiah Pacheco, I don't know that he has a direct handcuff. I'm not sure anybody on the roster would be able to kind of fill in for him. But Jordan Mason could be the pick for this roster as constructed. But I'm going to go with a guy that I kind of like here, Malachi Corley. I do think that Rodgers likes him a lot, and that there's an opportunity for him to be on the field during two wide receiver sets early in the year while Mike Williams comes back from injury. So that's kind of the direction I'm going to go here. Just take a shot on upside. Could be the first guy I cut in week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. And just taking a shot on potential situational upside, I'm going to go ahead and take Ricky Pearsall here. Like I said, we're recording this on Wednesday. Ayuk has not officially signed. If we expect him to, but if he does get traded to the Steelers, then Pearsall's value is gonna skyrocket.
All right. And with that, thank you so much for watching. This is our 12-team Superflex 3 wide receiver mock, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.